You're listening to Barbell Logic, brought to you by Barbell Logic Online Coaching, where each week we take a systematic walk through strength training and the refining power of voluntary hardship.
This is Barbell Logic Podcast. This is Anna Marie Oaks Judy, and I'm here with Rebecca Krieg as we continue our series on strong moms, but our series on ladies and lifting. Hi, Rebecca. How you doing?
I'm good.
Oh, good.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. I love these. These are really fun for me because we rarely get to see each other. We live far away from each other, so this is really fun.
I know. I totally would be like, Anna Marie, let's go grab a beer or coffee.
Yes.
Like, at least once a month.
100%.
Oh, if only. We get to do a podcast instead.
Which is really fun too. So this episode, we're going to talk about being an example for your kids and even a little bit of balancing work, training, mom life.
Yes.
So both Rebecca and I have more than one child, and her kids are a little older than mine, but she's done a really great job raising them. So she's a good example, and mine are younger. So we'll see when they get older if I've done a good job.
I think you're doing pretty good.
I hope so.
Homeschool too. Sheesh.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about representation, or like who we had to look up to when we were young.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't really have many role models that were physically strong or, normal sized, normal looking. So I wanted to kind of ask you what your kids and your daughter in particular, even your sons, what your kids, how that has changed maybe their outlook on what a healthy person is, seeing you train through everything, through hardships and all that stuff.
Through it all. Yeah. If you listen to the last episode. Yeah. I definitely think it's changed their perspective. All three are very different, of course. Like my oldest son is a chemical engineering major, super high IQ, not social, nerdy to the get out. I mean, any stereotypical thing of a nerdy person is him, and he embraces it.
Good for him.
And all of his friends are like geniuses too. He's like that kind of kid.
Yes.
And he like swam. He's not an athlete, would not call himself an athlete, but he swam. Like he was a swimmer and did, above average at it for high school kind of thing. But you were a swimmer. So
yep.
He understands hard work.
Yeah.
Like he was serious enough about it that he did the thing that the coach told him to do,
Yeah.
And so for a period of time, he did say, well, I'm going to lift because probably getting stronger would help me swim faster. So he has learned to lift and has lifted, hates to exercise, would just tell you that outright.
Yeah.
And he's now living with us through a circle of things as he's in college. But he recently, for his mental health, decided to start lifting again. And I think that's just it for him, right? Like the influence for him is like, there is a way to live your life where making strength a part of it does improve a lot of other areas of your life. Like he can just see that through the example.
Not just physically.
Right.
Right.
Because for him, he already was like, COVID's been hard as a college student. It's been really hard.
Yeah.
And he and his friends have all they've been trying to be supportive of each other, but they've been very sort of compliant with what the college rules are. And, he recognizes that it's been a struggle and he needs to sort of like take care of himself. And so he's not doing it perfectly yet, but that was his decision. Wasn't necessarily me nagging him. So, I mean, I guess that's a good thing, right? Like that he sees the benefit of my example that it does help with some of these other things.
Exactly.
Now, Bear is an athlete. So
you're like you're stud athlete.
He's the man. And he's like hook, line, sinker into it. Like he's coaching his friends, doing pretty well at it, actually.
Awesome.
But, he's like, his training is life right now.
Yeah.
He does school and he does pretty good on it, but he's like, training is life and he's trying to push himself to be that. He's driven in that regard about lifting. So for him, I think it was just learning how to be a man with training.
Yeah.
And probably, he recognizes in me that I'm stronger than average, and he will jag his friends like, my mom can bench more than you or whatever, but but like, he's like,
True.
You should really lift because my mom can bench more than you. And they're like, nuh-uh. It's like, she benches 200 pounds. So yeah, she can, so that kind of thing. But for him, he's seen it as a mode to accomplish the goals he wants,
Yeah.
And then for my daughter, I kind of alluded to this in one of the other episodes, but I think for her, it's been the way you look is not the only thing.
Not your value.
Yeah. So I think she's learned that. I mean, she's a freshman in high school, so certainly things are changing, and I'm sure the struggles for her are not completely
starting.
Yeah, they're just starting.
Yeah.
But they can see, they'll mention in passing the difference in body composition. They'll just notice, or like, I don't have to worry about that because you can do that, Mom. Like, you're capable by yourself or whatever.
Yep.
Like just little things like that. Like, they just live with someone who's capable. So they recognize why, though, because they've seen, that transformation, I think. But I did not force my kids. Now, they will joke with me that I say every solution to every problem is to learn to squat. They like joke about
You're
that.
You're not wrong.
Right.
I don't think,
But I have tried to like just let them be around it and not require it of them. But they sort of have all in different parts of their life come to this point where they're like, I'm going to choose this for myself. Elise is just starting to train now.
I saw that.
This has been a weird year because we moved, but she's with Dad for like till the end of school year. I mean, I'll be going back and forth, but so we're doing like the online coaching thing. So she's like an online client. So it's so crazy. But she's hilarious. And she's, she's a late bloomer. So she's like behind a little bit with like strength. And so she knows like soccer field, like I just want to be a little stronger out there, be able to like hold my own playing. She played varsity this year a little bit. So,
awesome.
Just that change of like, I need to
step it up a little.
You want to mix it up a little bit. Yeah. So
yeah,
she's willingly decided to do it. And so, yeah, we'll see. I mean, like you said, even though my kids are older, I mean, I don't know who I'm going to be in 10 years. So,
that's a true story, a truer statement I have not heard, because we change so much all the time. So it's good that we don't hold them to whatever it is that they want to be when they're 5.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Everyone would be a fireman, and we'd have a million firemen and princesses.
And a nurse. Yeah. Princesses. Exactly. You're like, this is not very functional.
Or is it very fun to be a princess?
Yeah. No, I'm not a fan.
Yeah. Just ask Meghan and Harry, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I think that's a thing, though, like that your kids see the process of you changing. Because I know they have. For me, I mean, I was divorced when they were about 6 or 7 years ago. So they saw that and changes. And I think like seeing me still work on myself, not just lifting in other ways, is huge.
Well, and like taking care of yourself, because that is something that we as moms struggle with doing, is allowing for our own self-care. And there's that saying that you can't fill anyone else's cup if you're empty. So we make an effort. I mean, this is why I do it. Make an effort to take care of ourselves so that we can continue to take care of those around us, and so that we can continue to fill the cups of our children, because we need to do that,
Yeah.
And I think that it's super important. And I know like my kids have never seen me not training. Like I think my son was 4 when I started doing CrossFit. And so he would come with me to the gym because I would take him to Taekwondo afterwards. And he would see me like lifting. And one of my first lifting videos that I have, he's recording me.
Aww.
And he's like, "Go, come on, Mom, you can do it." His little man voice, like talking to me. So it's very sweet.
Aww.
And like my twins were 1 and my 10-year-old was, I want to say 2.5. So for them, it's like a lifelong thing. And our youngest, Phoebe, I trained through my pregnancy with her. So, which we talked about in the previous episode. But what I see that is a benefit to them is it does a couple of things. Besides the fact that like your kids, like they recognize the mental health aspect of it, where it's like, it's a release, or it's a way to just kind of get out of your head and get into your body, which I think is super important.
Yeah.
They recognize in Bear's case, like what it's going to do for his athletic career. And then in Elise's case, what it's going to do for her athletic career. What I think it does is this, I've noticed this in myself too, is it completely changes what you look for in people around you, whether it's in a partner or it's in friends, because you look for, like, your parents are examples to you. So like I said, it's beyond just like, oh, a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever. It's like your friends. You look for similarities between you and this friend, right? But then when you start to like try to create your friend circle, you look for characteristics that you see in your own family.
Right.
If you like them. If you don't like them, you look for the opposite.
That's true. Yeah. One or the other.
Like what I was attracted to in people, though I've always been attracted to bigger or stronger people because I was bigger or stronger. And part of that is that I wanted to feel smaller because I always felt like I was huge. You know what I mean?
Yes. I hear you with that.
I want to be dainty and tiny. Well, I don't, but I've gotten over that. I noticed that it completely changed what I looked for in other people. As I looked for this kind of like fortitude that was carried in them in a different way. And so I started surrounding myself with other coaches as friends.
Right.
And my friends were people from the gym. And we would spend our time, my husband trains, like we would spend our time together doing that. And so it started to kind of seek out, besides being like-minded individuals, there's a special something about people that choose voluntary hardship. And I know that's one of our big things is choosing to struggle because we know that that choice to struggle makes the things that we have no choice about easier to deal with.
Yes.
So in myself, I recognized that, but I've noticed that in my kids is they seek out strong, like outgoing girls and boys. Like my daughter is my 10-year-old. A boy bought her flowers and brought them to jujitsu yesterday.
Ooh.
Okay. I was like, you're 10. But I realized what it was. She's outgoing. She's strong. She's confident. And she's not afraid to take up space. Right. She's not like, I need to make myself smaller because it's intimidating to people around me. And I was like, that's a big deal.
Yes. It's a huge deal.
Huge deal. And the part of that is I'm her mom. Part of that is the people that she sees that I show her are strong and confident.
People around the house, the people you're talking to.
Exactly. The other women in the gym, the jiu-jitsu gym, her coach. Like there's these strong role models for her. And that's what she's looking for. And that's what she is becoming. And so that to me is like, yes, that's what I want.
That's amazing. Yeah.
That's what I want. And then all my kids are really loud and social because they're homeschooled. Everyone's assuming that they're in the basement, afraid of humans, but they're not. They're very social. They're very outgoing and they do all the fun things. But, the example that Alex, my husband, and I set for them is that seek out people that'll make you better and you will be. And then be confident in who you are so that you're not like trying to diminish your light.
Right. Yes. I love that. You mentioned how we tend, when we first started coaching, because I was definitely the same way as you, like it was so cool to hang out with other coaches. And I think anyone who starts to train gets the bug is like, oh, cool, other people that lift. Like, you get really excited about it.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons is you can be very different than the other people. Like if you look at the coaching staff at Barbell Logic, for example,
we're all so different.
So different. Like people like engineers or, like, I mean, there's just a million different kinds of people. You still have this affinity, but not just an affinity. It's like a way of life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like people
common
have affinity
thread
for things you like we play D&D or we have book club or like whatever your thing is. It's a little bit different because it's like a choice. Like when we get together as a staff or with other people, well, of course you're going to lift together and there's this thing you already do together, but it just trickles off into everything else. Like conversations at meals or having a beer. Like there's just, I don't know what that is, but it's that confidence, but like that is what we seek out. And I think our kids see that. And definitely like, I think it's hanging on to people that you find interesting.
Yes.
Because they are not afraid of hard.
Yep.
There's something very interesting about that. Somebody who does not back down from something this hard is interesting.
No, for sure.
It's not universal trait. It's not.
Because they're usually not boring people either. They've usually done some crazy things or like you said, they're engineers. And sometimes I'm like, look, I'm not an engineer, imposter syndrome, but I'm here and I do it and I'm good at what I do. But it's that like surrounding yourself with people that raise you up. That cause you to want to be better.
Yeah.
And that was part of what drew me to strength coaching in the first place was the community of people.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really special. And I still think it's really special. And I'm very happy for the friends that I've gotten to make, whether I see them often or not, they're still my friends. I still get to see them.
Yeah. I know. We pick up wherever.
Yes.
I do think like the people who are going to train for their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what they're going to be like 5 years from now. Like, they might be struggling. They might be going through something else, but you know they're going to be some other better, interesting version of themselves.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just have this, well, this is who I want in my corner if things go down and start to burn. Like, that kind of thing.
I know where I'm going if stuff goes sideways.
Exactly.
I know who has all the food. I know who has all the whatever.
All the Bitcoin.
Yeah, all the Bitcoin. I know.
Anyway, with my kids, like, I think I've always tried to encourage them. Now that, I don't know, I mean, you have 10-year-old, like, your kids are getting older.
Right.
And the things you're starting to notice with, like, interactions with other kids, like,
right.
We've talked a lot with my kids about their circle and, like, you know, how do you build that? And, you know, there's always going to be people that are going to be in your life that you have to deal with, and that you should always choose to deal with carefully, because every person in your life matters and can teach you something. But the people that you really invest in better be good.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, they just have to be, because it just never works the other way. Like, it's always going to tear you down the other way.
And I was kind of going to segue into this one. What do you think your kids learning to do hard things has done for other aspects of their lives? Like, how do you think that is carried over? Like, your oldest son, he's super intelligent, high IQ, right? But he's done hard things. Do you think that makes him more prone to, like, work through a problem in a different way, as opposed to just being like, it's too hard, I can't do it? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah. So he's an interesting one for sure. I already got permission from my kids. I'm like, I'm going to share my stories about you, just so you know. But he's had a life with, like, a little bit more physical pain than some, because he has eosinophilic esophagitis. So I mean, don't get me wrong. Other people their kids have way worse things. So I'm not, like, upset about that. But he definitely has had, it's painful to swallow food, and we didn't really figure out what it was. His esophagus swells shut. So he'll get food stuck in it. It'll be painful to swallow. It causes, like, reflux, and he already has a very scarred esophagus, you know, at his age or whatever. But we didn't figure it out till he was, like, 7. We had to take him, like, off every food and then put him back on one at a time. So he lived through this thing in his childhood that was, like, pretty
stressful,
influential into the person he became.
Yeah.
But yet he's very cerebral, and he's not, maybe even slightly a little autistic. I don't mean to say that in a bad way, but he's
on the spectrum.
He's very logical, and to a point where, like, he thinks about things very differently than other people. And so he will tell you, he's like, I try to avoid discomfort all the time. Like, I just do, because I lived with it for so long, and he probably didn't even really know, like, until he was 10, did he really feel good? Right. Like, and then he's been through, and, like, every time he's moved to high school and had to eat in the cafeteria, moved to college, had to eat in that cafeteria, it gets worse.
Yeah.
He has about 7 foods he avoids, but he can still get flared up for various reasons. Anyway, so, like, he has this thing that he's lived with, and he's lived with it brilliantly. Like, I'm full of admiration in the ways, like, I can't even, like, I can't go without dairy. Like, I mean, I can, but, like, he does it all the time without blinking, you know, like, and it's sad when your kid is missing out on something in life that's delicious and fun. And, you know, birthday parties were hard. Camp was hard. Like, I have all those things. Like, you know, he's lived through it. But at the same time, he had to deal with hard, right? Like, he just had to.
Right.
And so while he can make this connection in his mind between, like, I see myself, like, earnestly avoiding physical discomfort, but he will take on any mental discomfort and challenge, which is what actually has him carved out beautifully for college, right? Like, he studies endlessly and tackles, you know, really ridiculous math. Like, if I was taking his semester, I would explode. Like, I couldn't do it. You know, like, he's taking, like, Calc 4, Physics 8, like,
oh, wow,
all these, like, math classes and chemistry classes. And I'm like, I was a science major, so I know enough about them to be completely terrified.
Yeah.
And you know,
same.
I, like, know just enough to be like, and he's like, he'll get frustrated, but he just keeps after it. Like, there is a characteristic in him that knows, like, he just keeps after it and keeps after improving himself. Like, he's very self-reflective, but he gets to the point where he's like, I know this physical hardship is good for me. And he looks at it very cerebrally like that.
Yeah.
So, like, I think for him, he sees the example of, like, I can see the logical conclusion of doing this, and it's good.
That's good.
Like, so yeah, for him, it's like that. I think for Bear, like, it was realizing he was tougher than he thought, right? Like, as a junior high boy.
which is always good because that's such a
Yeah.
pivotal time in your development, which sometimes I lament the smashing of people together in that age where they're like, it's just awful. But I think it's super cool that he.
Yeah. No, I think you're right because everyone hits those stages differently and with different ways and with different support.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You get a bunch of junior high kids around who all want to be lazy and all want to be like, because that's their tendency, right? Like, you're sort of changing and you're like, you want to complain about everything.
Yeah, I'm tired. I'm hungry. Yeah.
Right. And not enough positive influence. And that just like spurs the same thing. The apathy, the like, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I couldn't be prouder at a moment in the gym when he chooses a grown-up thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, just learned it and knows, like, this is the hard thing. I'm going to do it. And I know men who wouldn't choose the same thing as him. And he's already tough enough to do that.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, I see him embrace that. And he can get up now and train before he goes to work at McDonald's, doesn't blink an eye. Not a lot of kids would do that, you know? So.
No. And that's largely due to the example that was set by the people that are caring for him and raising him. Some people, they'll do that. They'll do that on their own. I was one of those people. Like, I would get up early and I would go to work.
My daughter is too. She might just do it anyway. I don't know. She's crazy.
And that's not everyone. Yeah. But, you know, when you set an example, when you make it a priority in your life, they see that it's possible. So let's talk a little bit about balancing mom life and training. So
that's the hardest part.
It's the hardest part. But tell me some of the ways that you balance your training, life, et cetera, et cetera.
I actually am dying to hear your answer to this question because I feel like I am not awesome at it. Like, even for a coach, like, I do it. Like, I do. I just feel like and for me, it's the changing the mental gear to go train is really hard for me. I feel like I get into a groove and I do better. Just like anything else, you get into a habit or a schedule and you're like, okay, this is working out pretty good.
Right.
But like, I feel like I'm very, and perhaps my whole struggle with incontinence played into that because I was like, this is just not fun.
Yeah.
So there's times like that, you know, but I feel like for me, the hardest part is the mental switch from like whatever busy's going on. Laundry, like coaching, running the mom bus, whatever. And then coming back and like switching gear to focusing. And I think like I definitely respond a lot to environment. So now, and maybe I'm even more like this than I was like 5 or 10 years ago. Like now for me, it's very important to have like my stuff, my setup that makes me feel comfortable. That mental switch can happen more quickly. So I get into warming up and then, okay, now I'm into training mode and I can go. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But for sure, the hardest set is the empty bar first thing you do. Like, that's the hardest thing. Like, to make yourself physically just
start it,
crawl out there. Once you start, you're like, oh, yeah, I like this. I do this, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, I think, too, there have been times where I train, like now I can train with my kids and that's not a problem. They're a little bit older. But there was a time when my kids were younger where I think it was hard to train with them in the room. I don't know if you've ever felt that way.
Oh, yes.
Some moms can do it fine, I think, but I was like too intense for it or something. I don't know. Like, it was distracting. I don't know. What do you do at your house with that?
So, okay. Because I know that this is something that moms like think about, like, I don't have the time. It's like, it's not a priority. I don't know how to make it a priority. So I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit just because we're both pretty busy and we make the time to train for a couple of reasons. In my case, it's because it is what keeps me sane. And I really like the capability of the body that I have.
Yeah.
And so I want to maintain that as long as possible. So it helps me actually appreciate my body more because I can definitely fall into that cycle of like, oh, I'm this or this. I've had 5 kids. So I have this stretch mark or my belly or like blah, 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 all these things that I can get into that negative self-talk cycle that I would never even say to my children, but I will say to myself. I wouldn't even say it to my spouse, right?
I know.
But I'll say it to me. I tell my friends all the time, don't talk about yourself like that. I love you. You're beautiful. But then myself, I'm like, meh. So part of what keeps me in that positive headspace is training because I focus on my capabilities as opposed to like focusing on my aesthetic, you know? So, and I have this written in capital letters, capability matters more than aesthetic. And that's why I want everyone to get strong. I want everyone to focus on their capabilities.
Yeah.
And if that means that somebody goes from not being able to walk down the stairs to being able to walk down the stairs, that's a capability.
Yep.
You are now capable of doing that thing that you couldn't.
Absolutely.
So it's not like, oh, you can lift this much weight. That's my capability. No, it's
more capable.
Right. You can do more in your life. So training for me, like I said, I'm one of those people that'll get up and do the thing because I'm motivated.
You said that about yourself. When you decide to do it, you're like, it's done.
I'm ridiculously stubborn.
That's a benefit.
In this case, it's a benefit. Not always, but yeah, it's a benefit here. So people talk about motivation all the time. Like, I'm not motivated or my motivation is gone. Well, I'm disciplined. And that's the difference. So yes, I've got 5 kids and we homeschool them. And my husband has a very early morning job. He gets home pretty early in the day. And our kids are at an age now where my oldest can babysit. So my husband and I, Alex, get to go do more things. Like we can go to jujitsu. So that's kind of a newer introduction into our lives lately. But I try to just do something every day. I have a 3-day training week, but it takes me 4 to 5.
Yeah.
Because of everything that's going on. Now, I have a home gym. Not everybody can have that. And I think I said in a previous episode, if you can get one, get one.
I agree with that.
Because it takes, in my case, I don't have to drive anywhere. I don't have to drive back. And sometimes I do my rows in my pajamas. So
yeah,
that's always nice. So my Monday is heavy squats, heavy bench, and a bench accessory. I roll on Mondays in jiu-jitsu. So I'll do my bench and my bench accessory. And then on Tuesday, I don't do any rolling. So I'll squat heavy on Tuesday. So that's one day that's turned into 2.
Gotcha.
I don't spend a ton of time doing those things. I do it during my kids' like rest time in the afternoon or when they're at jiu-jitsu. So I try to take advantage of the schedule, like the family schedule.
Do you ever split in the same day? Because I've had women ask me that.
Yes.
Okay.
I do actually. I've done that. When I lived in Tacoma, I would go in the mornings before I used to do jiu-jitsu. When the kids are done with school, which is usually 11 a.m. because homeschooling doesn't take a ton of time because it's just you and your kids, I'd go squat before lunch. And then I'd come back in the house, make lunch, do some check-ins with my clients. And then I'd go back out in the afternoon and do some bench with some of my clients sometimes. So then I'd finish my workout, but I would split it because that was the way that I could get it all done.
Right. A mom once said this, that she got the best advice about exercise is like, I mean, if you can, and obviously your job and what you do matters, but like run your kids in your workout clothes. It's okay. Get it done. Take a shower at night when it's all done. I mean, you get into this mode where you can't be all done up all the time. Like,
nope.
I mean, some people that bothers more than others, but
yeah,
like, if you can be like that and, that works to do squats now and by presses later, by all means. Like, mom's time is so compressed. Like, that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard if you have to mentally switch sometimes, but if you have that in your mind, like, it's okay. I'm going to put it here and I'm going to put it here and we're going to get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I work from home.
Right.
I work at my home. I homeschool. So those are all things that are in my favor.
Right.
If I had to go to an office and I had to change clothes and I had to drive, it would be harder for me. I have done that.
Yeah.
I've done it and it was hard, but I did it because, again, I'm stubborn, but it matters to me because it helps so much more of my life.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about that so that moms know that you don't have to do it all in one day or even all in the same time.
Yeah. No, I love that idea that you give yourself 3 days of the programming.
Yeah.
But you have all week to get it done.
Yeah.
I mean, that is mom life to a T. Like, you don't know when the kid is going to be like, I need this tomorrow, or I need this right now, or somebody gets sick, or something explodes at the house.
Yep.
Like, you never know. And so there are things you're like on your to-do list that you're going to boot to the next day. That just happens. And lifting can be the same way. Like, I try to do that with moms too. Or we do like a 1 lift a day type scenario where, one and then an accessory if you get it in kind of thing.
Right. Yep.
If it's a good day, the kids are really happy, you can do extra. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to build a little flexibility into a mom's schedule, I feel like.
Yes.
Or a pregnant person's schedule too, because they have a day they don't feel good, and then they could do it the next day. Same thing.
Because they're still moms. They're just, the baby is internal at this point. But I want you all to know that you can do that.
Yeah.
You have permission to do that. Like, just because your coach gives it to you on one day doesn't mean you have to get it done on that day. You have time. My suggestion is going to be, so that you don't have 4 days or 3 days of work to do on a Friday or Saturday, is to get a little bit done every day, just like you would with anything else. Like if you're preparing to write a paper or you're doing something along those, like you have a deadline, get a little done every day. And then you did mention like your kids training with you. I cannot do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because I'm too intense. It's because I need to be hyper focused on the heavy lift that I'm doing. And as a mom, the minute your kid makes a noise, mom brain turns on.
Mom brain.
That's that switch that's difficult because my husband doesn't struggle with it as much as I do.
No, it's mom brain. I know.
Because he's a guy. Like if he's doing a really heavy rep and one of them comes in and starts yelling at him in the middle of the rep, he's going to get annoyed. But like he's much better about letting them be in here running around while he's training.
Oh, yeah.
For me, it is a humongous distraction and I'm not going to succeed.
Like I've been in the squat rack and I like hear one of my kids come in, even now that they're older, even now.
Right.
And I hear them like shuffling around in the kitchen or something. I'm like, the protein powder is in a different place. He can't find it. And I'm thinking as I'm squatting.
As you're squatting.
You're just so in tune to your kid's needs or what happened. Or you're like, there was a crash or that's too quiet. Why is that too quiet? There's not enough noise. Moms will like have to stop in the middle.
Yeah. We're like, what's going on right now? It's a true story. And like, I have a couple clients, like one of them is like 8 weeks postpartum and she's squatting in her video today and her little baby is laying on the little DockATot thing on the floor. And she's looking at her, she's squatting. I'm like, that's the perfect, like I did that with Phoebe. I'd put her in her little chair and as long as she wasn't screaming, I could train.
Right.
But like the minute she's screaming, I can't focus. But like when they're teeny tiny.
Or you're nursing and then your body is like, the baby needs me right now.
Yeah. Which I think I made a post or two about that. One point I was pressing and she started screaming. So I picked her up and nursed her, put her down, pressed a set, picked her up, nursed her, put her back down, pressed a set. Just because I was like, I have to get this done because I like,
that is some discipline. You are disciplined. Good for you. That's so good.
It's because I need it. It's not because I'm like better.
Right.
It's because I'm like, if I don't do this.
So I feel like there's times in my life where I've been like you, like, because I have a more obsessive person. I mean, you're stubborn, but I would describe my personality as a little bit more obsessive in that, like, when I get into something, I'm like really into it. Like, and that doesn't mean like just lifting. Like if I'm into a project, like I just want to keep working on it. I like very
focused, like hyper focused.
I can sprint on something for a long time kind of thing.
Right.
And so I can be like that with lifting too, where I'm like, if I have a goal or I'm prepping for something or I'm just really into it, like best case scenario and when I would be happiest in my life is like, I would be a gym rat. Like I would be doing something all day long, never looking in a mirror and I would feel amazing, kind of thing. Like, because that's my happy place in that regard.
Right.
But it takes me a while to settle into my happy place. Right. So
right.
For me, there are long periods of time where training is not mental relief. It's not stress relief. It is something else on the to-do list to do.
Right.
And I think that's important to know too, because I think some people, that's okay. Like it's okay for it to be something else. But that type of scenario, whether that's how it always is for you or whether it's just for a period of time, like where it's just training is in one of those lulls and it feels like that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's important for you to watch yourself for burnout.
Yes.
Because I think it can easily turn into burnout where you're like, I can't do one more thing. Because how many times do moms feel that way? Like, I can't handle one more thing.
I can't add another thing to my plate. Yeah. All the spinning dishes.
You're like, how in the world can I fit something else in? And I think that's what I hear you saying is like, but you can, and it's important for your self-care because while it doesn't feel fun doing it and you may not get stress relief from it. And for some of those moms, I'm like, okay, so we're going to get all the big four in and then you're going to go for a run by yourself. If that's what makes you feel stress relief, like, let's do that.
Yep.
Because you need that too, right? And that's okay. Like, you don't have to be driven for that thing 100% of the time.
Right.
But if it's getting to be like that, if it's getting to be that slog, if it's getting to be like, it's one more thing, well, I think anytime you get to that point in your life, I find two things helpful. First of all, to take a look at where you're spending all your time and asking yourself, is it all worth it? Because chances are there's probably things in your life that you don't really want to be doing, but you find yourself feeling like it's necessary. So that's important to do all the time. I'm doing that constantly, just like reevaluating where I'm spending my time.
Yep.
But also asking myself this question, like, I can start the day with a to-do list, but what really, really matters is my done list at the end of the day.
Yep.
So like when I get to the end of this day, will I feel better about cleaning the porch or doing my squats?
Right.
Like, which is actually better for me in the long run. And I said it before, but like you can't have everything all at once as a mom. You just can't, because your time is divided with raising these little people, which is so great and so rewarding. But
it's the best, literally the best thing. It's just the hardest thing.
It is the
it's
hardest
the hardest thing that you'll ever do.
It is.
And that's okay.
It is. But I think that's what I encourage like moms to do is like, remember what your done list is. And so like if your workout's this long from your coach and you only got the first thing done, that is still huge. It's huge.
That's still a big deal. Yes, exactly. And that's right. Like your done list, that's a great way to look at it, because like, sure, you've got all these things that you should, quote unquote, or need, quote unquote, to do in this time frame, but what is going to give you the most bang for your buck, or what is going to be the best time use? And I do have to say, I don't always want to train. There are many, many times where I don't want to.
Right.
But that's where the discipline comes into play versus the motivation. So
don't belittle yourself for that, because that is a beautiful internal strength part of your personality. Like, I mean, I know probably you're like, my stubbornness has got me in trouble before too. I'm sure you feel like that.
Yeah.
But it's a cool part about you,
Yeah.
right? Like that.
Right.
Because all of us, we all have our struggles and they're not all the same. And I think the fact that when you put your mind to that, and you just do that. I have one of my kids like that, but I think it's cool. Like, I'm like,
yeah.
And he might even be miserable doing it, but he still does it because he decided to.
Well, and the other side of that, that's good, because you make a decision and you're like, I'm going to follow through with this.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is for people that say deal with, like in your case, external stressors that come out in your lifting, or
I'm so like that,
where you take a break and then you come back. And you take a break and you come back. I don't know that either trait is more admirable, because I think they're both admirable in their own ways. That you're not like, okay, I've done it, I'm done, I'm not going to do it again. But you're like, no, I got to go back to this thing because it's good for me. So that's, I think, just as valuable as somebody who never stops, because that's like their personality. But somebody who comes back, keeps coming back to that thing. And there are a lot of coaches like that. That like, there's a death in the family, or there's a baby, or they're moving, or like you guys moved, or like whatever, like with COVID, gyms shutting down and loss of income and things. But coming back to that is almost harder. So I have a lot of admiration for people that just keep coming back. And moms, you can also do that. You can just keep coming back. You don't have to stick around. You just keep coming back.
Coming back is hard. Like, don't get me wrong, because you feel like, I'm spending all this time in this last ground. But again, at the end of the day, there's give and take. And I feel like the guilt is just not worth the battle, because it's, you can get to the same direction through a lot of paths. And so I think that's.
Yes. Many roads to the same end point.
And moms, like, we just are so hard on ourselves, like ridiculously hard on ourselves. And so that's the thing that I think when you're looking at your schedule, you have to give yourself slack, grace, and like, ask yourself, like, what will you be glad it's done? I think is even more of an important question than, do I want to do this?
Right.
Some people are going to be like, I want to do this. I can't wait to do it. I can't wait to get back to lifting weights.
Right.
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, great. But
sure,
it may just be that you're like, I'm going to feel better about myself if I do it. And that's a good enough reason, I
have a client actually who admittedly does not like to train. She's told me, she's like, I don't like it. I struggle with it every time, but I do it because I know it's good for me. It's like taking my vitamins, drinking my water, eating my vegetables.
Honestly, sometimes those people stay with it way longer than the people who just love it.
Yeah.
Because if you're in love with just doing like getting PRs or doing a powerlifting meet or whatever, you can do it. Your highs are going to be high, but your lows are going to be low. And you might, it might derail you completely. Like sometimes there are people like that. But the people who are like, well, it's just, I got to do it. So I pay my taxes and I brush my teeth and I lift my weights. Like,
and I eat my carrots at dinner. It's the same idea. It's like, it's your medicine. You're taking your medicine. In this case, it's iron. It's great. It's the best medicine. I'm not even going to lie. There's so many benefits from doing this. Bones, muscle, mental, physical, all the things. And
that's the thing with moms though. Like you just said, you're like, women love to see their kids lift weights and they're like, oh, great. Isn't that nice? That friend of mine's getting into shape. But like,
you've told me some of that.
It's your medicine. The medicine doesn't help you unless you take it. So, and that's why when you get to the end of the day and you feel like you can't fit it in, like you have to for your sake so that you can take care of everybody else. Like I implore people to do it. Like it won't do you any good unless you do it. So
yeah. And as two women who know the benefits of consistent training or just training and what that does, like what it did to completely change my whole outlook on life and difficulty, my physical body, my personal relationships. It sounds very culty. It's not. It's just that it's one thing that domino affects everything else.
Right.
Because you're like, I'm capable.
Yes.
And that is a huge thing. Is some people don't realize that they're capable.
Right.
Like you said, like Bear didn't know how tough he was.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now he does.
Yeah. And now look out. Watch out. I mean, it's so fun as a parent to be like, ooh, there's no stopping that kid now.
Which is great. And that's like, I look at my 10-year-old that got the flowers from the boy and I just think, yeah, girl, like,
heck yeah.
She got flowers. We had to have a conversation about what boyfriends mean, but it was still like, she wasn't like afraid. She accepted them with a giant grin on her face and she was blushing, but she wasn't like trying to hide.
No.
She wasn't trying to like be less than. She was like, oh, thanks.
Aww.
And I was like,
that's right.
Yes. She's a hard kid because she's so much like me and she's so stubborn. But I'm like, look, this is going to serve you well in life. I promise you.
Yes.
I tell myself that because I'm like,
right.
You're so difficult.
Step back and remember. Yeah.
This is good.
For sure. We're going to say that a million more times, but
yeah.
I think that's the piece. I mean, like I'll say Bear's dad has, even though he himself doesn't like training or doesn't train, he was like, he's happy that his son trained, right? Like, he's like, I'm glad he had this opportunity to get strong and develop himself. And I think that's a typical parent, like, response, right? Like, you want your best for your kids, but like,
yes,
you doing it yourself is almost more powerful because
it shows your children that you find yourself worth it.
Yeah.
Because you said you've had moms be like, oh yeah, I want her to get strong, but I'm not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some stigmas involved with women and training that we'll go over in another episode. But
yeah,
when we show our children that your mental, physical, and emotional health matters enough that you will do something over and over again that's hard, that is an example that we set for them. That goes right back to the beginning of this. Like, how are we examples for our kids? We're examples by doing and being. We can say so many things, but your kids are going to see what you do.
It's so much louder.
And that's what they're going to mimic.
It's so much louder.
Whether it's positive or negative.
I had a mom, I'll tell this one quick story. Her name's Erin. She's one of my clients up in Canada. But she was sharing with me, she was doing the online meet and she had like a horrible day, like just a big failure of a day.
Yeah.
And her little son was like, Mommy, why did you fail? You worked so hard. Like, yeah. So they had this huge conversation about failure, right?
That's a lesson right there.
And he saw her tears and he saw her struggle. She's like, I'm going to go out there and try again. And like, not only was she able to talk about that with him, she was able to
show him,
right? She's still out there, squatted again, even though she failed that rep that time, like that's so powerful. Like, what a lesson for your kids to get up and keep trying.
Yes. And that, like, you can say, you get back on that horse, but doing it yourself, that old adage, actions speak louder than words. There's a reason that it exists.
Right.
In the first place. And I just think it's so great. And I have, clients who train with their babies in there who train because they don't want to or whatever it is, but they do it and it sets an example, And actually, I was going to say the failure lesson too is as a coach, when I have my first like phone call with a client, regardless of if they're male or female, that's one of the first things I talk to them about is failure.
That's so brilliant.
Because so many of us don't like failure. Like,
yeah.
That is understandable. Failure is an uncomfortable place, just like training. But if I let them know at the outset that it will occur and that it'll be okay and that it's part of the process, it takes some of that pressure off because I would encounter people who are like, they wouldn't try the 5th rep or they wouldn't go to depth.
Right.
Or they wouldn't touch their chest with the bar because they were like, well, I might fail. And I would say, you're supposed to fail.
Right.
You're supposed to try really, really hard.
Yeah.
We're not going to make you fail over and over again, but it's got to happen.
I think a lot of women are afraid of that with the barbell.
Yeah.
Specifically. I mean,
yes.
They're like, the number on the bar is a little bit scary. And so they just won't squat deep enough, right?
Yeah.
And it is like the gut check. Are you going to live that out in front of your kids? Do you want them to give up on it? Like,
right.
You don't.
But she didn't. She set this amazing example for her son and turned this moment for her son and herself into this teaching moment. And she went back in there and she tried again.
To be honest, she was like, oh, crap. Now I got to do it. She's sharing with me as a mom. I'm like, I know it stinks, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But
you say things. You got to do those things.
That is one of the brilliant parts of being a mom is it is going to push you. Like, it just does push you to be somebody even better than you were probably before you're a mom.
Yeah.
And that's not that you can't become a good person without being a mom, but it is a tool that changes you for sure.
Yeah. We've chosen that path for our lives, and it is another path that's very difficult.
Yes.
And so there's like the correlation between the two. And so I think it's just, and there are other paths that are equally difficult. That's not saying it's the only one, but it's the difficult one for me.
Yeah.
And I've chosen this one. And it's hard just like everything else. But, that's what life is. It's a series of struggles and how you respond to those struggles. And the cool thing about getting stronger is sometimes those struggles seem less of a struggle because you're strong.
Yeah.
And that's the cool part.
For sure, the subtlety of moms being a very capable person. Like, just think of the strength of the environment that you create for your kids when you are physically strong, but also mentally tough and disciplined. And voluntary hardship just does allow you to take on life easier, right? Like all the other hard things. And so you're going to take it as medicine for your health, but like taking it as an environment for your kids, you can't go wrong with that. Like,
yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't know. I'm my first experience with a family that I've been close to where kids have like seen mom lift for like, a longer period of time.
A large period of time.
But I'm super pleased with lessons they've learned that I didn't even know they would learn, right? Like, I started the journey for myself. Like, there's no doubt about that. But of course, I wanted my kids to hopefully see it and choose it for themselves. And it's just interesting to me, as different as they are, that they have. But it is that environment that you create, as part of life. There's a lot of psychological things you can get into with like blaming your parents for ways you are. But like, you're not perfect. You're still making mistakes.
Yeah.
But like, if you are capable and disciplined, like, that's a strong place for your kids to lean against.
And I think moms are very, very hard on ourselves. And I want to tell all the moms out there, you're doing a really good job.
Oh my gosh.
You're doing a really good job. Whatever it is you're doing a really good job. And don't let anybody take that away from you because it's hard. It is really, really hard.
I have a client now who, is preparing to be a mom by lifting, which is the coolest.
It is.
So cool.
That's very cool.
She's like, we're ready to do this. I know I need to be more strong and more capable. Yeah, girl.
Yeah, And that's very cool. That is a very cool way to prepare because that's not something that everybody does. I definitely didn't for the first one. I was like, I'm going to eat ice cream because I'm pregnant.
That's right. I'm eating for 2.
Yeah, I'm eating for 2. The baby's a pea, but it's fine.
More myths that we could talk about.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we should wrap this one up and we'll attack those myths and strength being for you or not being for you the next time that we talk. And we'll have Rachel.
Yeah, Rachel's going to join us. The first lady of Block.
Yes.
Rachel Reynolds. She's amazing. So sweet.
So we will be speaking with her next time you hear from us. But thank you for listening. And where can people find you, Rebecca? Instagram, Facebook?
So
where?
My Instagram is at Bekah and Barbells is my Instagram handle. Bekah is how I spell it. And you can also look up Krieg Strength is our gym. Right now we're online, but we will be opening up someplace here in Michigan.
Awesome.
Hopefully soon. But yeah. So, and what about you?
I am AM_strength on Instagram. Also on Facebook. I have AM Strength here in Montana, and I will be running a strength cycle coming up here soon.
Oh, sweet.
So that will be up on the Instagrams as well. And when the stress incontinence episode comes out, I'll post some more videos of me peeing while I lift. But
awesome.
All those things.
Evidence.
Yes. Evidence that it happened and that it's okay.
Yeah. If you live in Montana, you should definitely go.
Come see me. No, I love working with people. It'll be really fun. So,
yeah.
But yes, thank you, my dear. And I will speak with you again very soon.
All right. Thanks, girl. Bye.
Bye.